Episode 1. The boy at the foot of the bed. The house had been empty for 14 years. Elara unlocked the door with a key that hadn't been used since the night her mother disappeared. The brass was cold, the knob stiff. Like the house had learned how to hold its breath, she stepped inside. No dust, no cobwebs, just stillness. The kind that didn't mean abandonment, the kind that meant waiting. That night, she couldn't sleep. She didn't try very hard. Grief was a better companion in the dark. It didn't ask questions. It just lay beside her, like the child she lost, like the one she never named. At 3:11 a.m., the floor creaked. She thought it was the pipes, the house settling, until she opened her eyes and saw him, a boy, maybe 7, barefoot, hair too neat, too dark, standing at the foot of her bed, not blinking, not scared, just there. Mom. The word hit like a cold rag across the face. She sat up. What did you just say? The boy tilted his head. You promised you'd be here when I came back. She reached for her phone. It wasn't on the nightstand. Neither was the lamp. In fact, the room wasn't hers anymore. The paint was different, the curtains thicker, and there was a rocking chair in the corner that hadn't been there when she moved in yesterday. Who are you? She asked, breath catching. You forgot again, the boy said, smiling. But that's okay. You always do. She stood, but her legs didn't work the way they should, like she'd been asleep for years, not hours. The boy walked toward the door. Come on, he said. Breakfast is ready. We have eggs today, like the dream you had last week. He paused. I didn't like the burnt edges, though. Can we fix that? He left the room, quiet as a memory. She followed, because the only thing more terrifying than not knowing who that child was the feeling that he was right, that she had said she'd be here, that she had left something behind, in a womb that was never supposed to forget. And in the hallway mirror, just before she turned the corner, she caught a reflection. Pregnant. Episode 2. Room 4 wasn't here yesterday. Elara spent the morning searching for logic. She checked the front door. Locked. No signs of entry. No muddy footprints. No clues. The boy was gone. So was the rocking chair. And her reflection was normal again. She opened every drawer. Checked every room. 3 bedrooms. 1 bath. Living room. Kitchen. All exactly as she remembered them. Still haunted by dust, not by ghosts. Until lunchtime, when she walked past the hallway and saw something that wasn't there yesterday. A door, wooden, paint peeling in curls like old birch bark, doorknob missing, no number, just a smear of something red across the top corner. Too dry to be fresh, too deliberate to be age. She blinked, backed away, then counted. 1, 2, 3, 4. Room 4. But there was no room 4. There had never been a room 4. She remembered the blueprints, the tours with the realtor, her own hands scrubbing these floors clean. This part of the hallway had been a solid wall, always, and yet the door stood there, waiting. She pressed her ear to it. Silence. Then a whisper, soft, not spoken, sung, a lullaby, too broken to name, too familiar to forget. She opened the door and froze. It was a child's room, not staged, not new, lived in, toys scattered, crayons in a box, stuffed bear missing an eye on the bed, and the walls, painted yellow, exactly the shade she once told her husband she'd choose if they ever had a boy. But that dream died when the baby did, or so she thought. A photo sat on the nightstand of her holding a child. Same boy, same smile, same dress she wore to her sister's baby shower. But she had no memory of the picture being taken, no memory of the child ever being born. The rocking chair creaked behind her. She turned. It was back, and the boy sat in it, swinging gently, feet not touching the floor. Told you, he said. It's my room. You promised I'd have one. He looked around, then sighed. You always forget the bear. Episode 3. He eats what I dream. The first time, she thought it was a mistake. She dreamt of her grandmother's corn soup, thick, creamy, heavy with garlic and love. When she woke, the kitchen smelled like childhood, but she lived alone, and the stove was still warm. The second time, it was a stack of pancakes. Soft, dense, drowned in honey. The exact way her ex-husband used to hate. But she loved them, and apparently so did the boy, because when she came downstairs, he was already eating them. Bare hands, no plate, sticky fingers leaving prints on the kitchen tile. "Where did you get that?" she asked. He looked up, mouth full. "From you," he said. "You left it out last night, in the dark place, where dreams cook." She didn't respond, because her mouth remembered the taste before she could deny it. And her hands smelled like cinnamon and grief. That night, she tried to test it. Before bed, she wrote a note. "Tonight, I will not dream of food." She placed it under her pillow, closed her eyes, focused, emptied herself. But the dream came anyway. A birthday cake, chocolate, too many candles, and a single word written in red frosting. Again, she woke to the smell of burnt sugar, rushed downstairs. There it was, half-eaten, smear of red across the table. The boy sat on the counter, licking his fingers. "You forgot to cut it this time," he said. "But I made a wish anyway." Want to know what it was? She didn't answer, because on the kitchen wall, written in frosting she hadn't made, was a message. "Let me stay this time." She collapsed into a chair. The boy slid the last slice toward her. "You dream better than her," he whispered. She only made toast. "Who?" Elara asked, voice cracking. The boy looked confused. "The other you," he said, "before you came back." He smiled, soft, familiar. "You taste more like home." She stood, stumbled back, opened the fridge. It was full, every shelf, every drawer, but not with groceries, with things she'd forgotten dreaming of. Childhood lunches, failed recipes, cups of water her mother used to leave on her nightstand. And in the center, wrapped in foil, a baby bottle, still warm, still full. She didn't know what was more terrifying, that it existed, or that her body ached to hold it again. Episode 4, Don't Show in the Mirror. It started with a laugh. Not hers, not the boy's, but hers, coming from the hallway. Before she even opened her mouth, she followed the sound. Slow steps, bare feet on cold wood, and there it was, the hallway mirror. Cracked, not broken. The kind of crack that happens, not from impact, but from resistance, as if the glass was holding something in. For too long, the boy stood in front of it, frozen. He hadn't seen it before. She'd covered every mirror since he arrived, except this one. He stared at his reflection, eyes locked, mouth slightly parted, then tilted his head. The reflection didn't follow. "Why is he different?" he whispered. Elara's chest tightened. "Step away," she said quickly. "Now." But he didn't move. He stepped closer. So did the reflection. But the smile came first. Out of sync, too wide, too knowing. "That's not me," the boy whispered. "He remembers more than I do." And then the mirror spoke. Not sound. Text, etched across the bottom in silver breath. "He has her blood, but not her bones." Elara grabbed the boy's hand, pulled him away. His fingers were cold, colder than before, colder than real. That night, the mirror changed locations. It appeared in the kitchen, then in the upstairs hallway, then at the foot of her bed, always showing the same version of him, but aged and smiling and holding her hand in every frame. She tried to cover it. Blankets, paint, even prayer, but the mirror never stayed hidden, and the reflection began to shift. First, her hair changed, then her dress, then the room around her in the reflection no longer matched the one she stood in. It was another version of the house, cleaner, colder, more arranged, as if made for guests who never left. and each time she looked, the boy's reflection stood closer to hers, until one night he whispered inside the glass, "I liked you better when you couldn't see me." Elara smashed it, but the shards kept showing her face. Dozens of her, 100 expressions, none of them the one she was wearing. And from behind her, the Real boy asked, "Do I look like him now? Because sometimes I dream I'm on the other side, and you're the one trying to remember me." She turned, held him tight, because she didn't know who she was holding anymore. But she knew the mirror still watched, and it remembered everything. Episode 5, his voice in my mother's mouth. Elara hadn't touched the old answer machine since the funeral. Her mother used to leave voice notes for herself. Little reminders, half-sung lullabies, the kind of things people record to prove they once existed. She only pressed play because the silence felt too loud that morning. The boy had vanished again, and the house had started humming. Low, warm, like a breath being held too long. She pressed play, and her mother's voice filled the room. "Eggs are too soft. Next time, let them burn just a little." Elara froze. Those words weren't hers. They were his. The boy's. Exactly. She skipped to another message. "He doesn't like the bear missing its eye. He said it watches him when I sleep." Another. "You promised me a room. Yellow walls. Morning light. I'm still waiting." She stared at the machine. It wasn't the voice of her mother anymore. Not just her voice. It was his cadence, his tone, his memories, recorded years before he ever appeared. If he ever appeared. She searched the tapes, box after box, stacked beneath the stairs. Some unlabeled, some dated from years before she was even born. She played one at random. The tape hissed, then clicked, then a child's voice. Not hers, not her brother's, but him, the boy, clear, soft. She forgets faster now, but that's okay. The house remembers for her. She dropped the player. It didn't break, but the sound kept playing from the walls. She ran to the living room, turned on the TV. Static, every channel the same. A woman's silhouette rocking a baby in a chair. No face, no color, just shadow. And over it, the boy's voice again. "She loved me first, before the name, before the body, before the blood." Elara screamed, and from the hallway, her mother answered, not in body, not even in echo, but in the exact same voice the boy used the first night he appeared. "You left the door open. Elara, he came back like you asked." She backed into the kitchen, opened the fridge, found the bottle again. Still warm, still full, but this time it was labeled. A single strip of masking tape. For him, batch 2. The floorboards creaked. He was standing in the doorway. The boy, smiling, holding a tape in his hands. "She recorded this one the day you turned 8. He said, "Want to hear it?" She didn't answer, because she already had. It was the lullaby, the one she always thought she made up, the one she sang in her dreams, before she ever knew how to hold a child. Episode 6, Milk Teeth in the Walls. It started with the chewing. Soft, wet, rhythmic, behind the wall, always between 2 and 3 a.m., like something was gnawing at the beams, but not from hunger, from memory. Elara pressed her ear to the plaster. At first, silence. Then, crunch, chew, pause, repeat, like a mouth practicing something it no longer needed to do. She grabbed a flashlight, a hammer, her breath, and opened the wall. Behind the drywall, insulation. Behind the insulation, a hollow, small, deliberate, and inside, wrapped in aged cloth, tied with red string. Teeth, dozens, perfect little milk teeth. Each one placed like an offering, some stained, some engraved. One had a ribbon, another a speck of dried blood, and one had her name carved into the root. Elara, she dropped it, but it didn't fall. It hovered, just for a second, like it didn't want to leave her hand, like it remembered her. She sifted through the others. Some had initials. Some had dates. One had a note. He forgets more slowly if we feed him the lost parts. The teeth are safest. They hold the first truths. Suddenly, the flashlight dimmed. The air inside the wall shifted. And behind her, from the shadows of the hallway, the boy spoke. You weren't supposed to find them. His voice trembled. Not like fear. Like guilt. That's where she kept me before I had skin. I used to count them when I was scared. I liked the ones with names best. Elara turned. Why is my name on one? The boy paused, then smiled. Because you promised me a mouth. And a mother. She backed away, teeth still in her hand. The one with her name burned cold. Her fingertips pulsed. Her gums ached. She ran to the bathroom, opened her mouth, and screamed. In the back of her jaw, just below the molar, a new tooth was pushing through. White, round, small, too small, like it was never meant to be hers, but had come home anyway. She collapsed, and from behind the mirror, the boy's voice again. You forgot to bury them, so they buried themselves. Episode 7. The birthday that never happened. The house was too quiet, not peaceful, anticipatory, like it knew a celebration was coming, but didn't know who it was for. Elara smelled frosting before she saw it. Sweet, dense, the kind of sugar that clung to memory longer than it did to teeth. She followed the scent to the hallway, and there it was, a door, one that had never opened before, now slightly ajar, and behind it, balloons, deflated, dangling, as if hung by someone who didn't understand parties, but remembered the shape of one. Inside, a room she'd never entered, but somehow she had decorated. Streamers in yellow and blue, a paper banner that read, Happy Birthday, and a small table set with one plate, one fork, one candle, and a cake. She stepped closer. On the cake, a photo printed in edible ink of her holding the boy, newborn, wrapped in a green blanket. Her hair tied back the way she wore it only once, the day of the miscarriage. But in the photo, she was smiling, and he was crying, and someone had taken this picture. She stumbled back. The boy was sitting in the corner, humming a soft tune, same one from the tapes, same one her mother used to sing, to no one in particular. I knew you'd come, he said. You missed the first one, and the second, but this one I saved for you. He pointed to the chair. She didn't move. This never happened, she said. I never gave birth. I never threw a party. This isn't real. The boy looked hurt, but not surprised. You said that last year too. He picked up the cake, held it in both hands like an offering. Want to blow the candle out? I made a wish already. You just have to finish it. She looked closer. The candle wasn't wax. It was bone, a tooth, one of his. Still warm, still pulsing. What did you wish for? She whispered. Same thing as always, he said. To be born again. But this time remembered. The lights flickered, and the photo on the cake melted. The frosting ran, until the image twisted. And now, instead of holding the baby, Elara was inside the crib, and the boy was smiling down at her. She screamed, but the music started, the tune from the walls, from the mirror, from the tapes. A lullaby twisted into a chorus. She came back for the birthday she forgot. Episode 8. He remembers what I forgot. She found the drawings tucked under her pillow. Crayon on parchment paper. Edges singed like they'd been through heat. Or memory. She unfolded the first. A hospital room. Clear. Clean. But the bed was soaked in red. Not dramatic. Not horror movie red. Realistic. Stained like trauma that was never cleaned properly. The second showed a woman in a gown. Hair tied back. Eyes closed, but not asleep. Unconscious. And the baby in her arms wasn't crying. It was staring at the nurse, who looked exactly like her mother. Elara dropped the pages. Her fingers trembled, not from fear, from recognition. She sat on the edge of the bed, pressing her hands into her thighs like that would anchor her, keep her from slipping backward. But it was too late. The images had already lodged themselves behind her eyes, and with them came something else. The sound of metal wheels, the smell of antiseptic, a nurse whispering, "She won't remember," just like last time. She stumbled into the hallway. The boy sat on the floor, coloring, quiet, focused, like all children do when channeling something ancient. He didn't look up. "Did you see the one with the window?" he asked. She said nothing. He handed her the next page. It was a nursery, empty crib, curtains drawn, and a name carved into the wooden headboard. Elara, spelled with an H. The way her name had been almost written on her first birth certificate, before her mother had it changed. "Where did you see this?" she asked, voice thin. He shrugged. "I don't see them. I just remember. They come back when I sleep near the mirror. The real one. The one you keep hiding behind the wall." She stepped back. The mirror behind the wall. The one she boarded up after episode 4. The one that made her reflection age backwards when she stood too long. "Why do you remember what I forgot?" she asked, almost begging. "Because it wasn't yours to forget," he said. "It was mine." She looked at the drawings again, flipped them over. On the back of each one, a date written in pencil, and each one matched a night she'd had nightmares. Dates she'd logged, therapy journaled, blamed on grief and hormones. But they weren't nightmares. They were snapshots, stolen from him, returned through him. And now, they were starting to fit. One last drawing, folded 4 times. She hesitated before opening it. Her hands already knew what was inside, but she unfolded it anyway. A cave, dark, organic, like a womb carved into stone. Inside, a crib. Inside the crib, her, sleeping, with a note beside her. "Keep warm. She's not ready to know yet." Episode 9. I buried him, didn't I? The rain came heavy that morning, like the house had been waiting for it, as if moisture would soften the layers Elara had tried too long to keep dry. She stood at the back door. The boy was asleep. The hallway was humming again. But her hands itched. Not the kind of itch you scratch, the kind that remembers dirt. She walked to the shed behind the house. It smelled the same as it had 16 years ago. Oil, rust, lavender from her mother's drying jars. But something new lingered now. Decay, not of flesh, of memory. The shovel was still there, handle cracked, wood soft near the grip. She took it without knowing why. But every step she took into the woods behind the house confirmed the direction. Her feet moved like they'd walked this path 100 times. Even when the trail disappeared, her bones knew where to turn. 20 minutes in, she stopped. A clearing, overgrown, moss-covered, undisturbed, but not untouched. The dirt was wrong here. Softer, darker, turned. She dug, not frantically, rhythmically, like muscle memory, stored beneath trauma. The first sound of metal on wood stopped her breath. The second woke it. A small box, unmarked, no lock, wrapped in a torn piece of baby blue fabric. She dropped to her knees, wiped the lid, and whispered, "I buried him, didn't I?" The air didn't respond, but her chest did. A pressure, like something inside her, began pulling upward, like vines reaching for a truth too long underground. She opened the box. Inside, a single shoe, tiny, worn, dried mud still caked around the sole, and beneath it, a piece of paper, faded handwriting, shaky, her own. He asked not to be born yet. He said he wasn't ready. But I was, so I buried the weight instead. She dropped the note, held the shoe to her chest, and wept. But it wasn't grief this time. It was recognition. And in the wind, through the trees, a voice answered, "I would have forgiven you sooner, if you'd just remembered the box." She turned. The boy stood at the edge of the clearing, barefoot, soaked, smiling. "You kept it safe," he said. "That's all I ever needed." He walked toward her, kneeling beside the open grave, and whispered, "Now we can stop dreaming, Mom." Episode 10, My Body Remembers Birth. It began with the wet spot on her nightshirt. She hadn't been sweating. The room was cold. The window opened just enough to carry the scent of rain and moss. She touched the fabric. Sticky, sweet, familiar. In the bathroom, she removed her shirt. 2 perfect circles. Over her breasts, faint but growing. And beneath her skin, a pressure, not pain, not even discomfort, but need. She remembered that feeling, not from experience, from dreams, from the way her mother used to flinch when hearing a baby cry too long in the grocery store. The body remembers. Her mother once whispered, even when the mind can't bear to. Later that day, Elara stood by the window. The boy played outside, digging, always digging, not playfully, purposefully, like he was making room. She watched him and felt it, the shift, deep in her hips, lower back, a pulse, a pressure that moved with the wind and stayed behind when it passed, like her spine had been reset to something older than memory. That night, she dreamed again, but not of him, of herself, in a hospital, alone, no doctors, no machines, just her, knees bent, hands trembling, and the sound of her own voice. "He's not ready, but I am. I have to do this now." She woke up sobbing, blanket drenched, sheets crumpled like fists, and on her chest, a lullaby hummed from under her skin. The boy entered without knocking. He sat at the edge of the bed, didn't speak, just listened, and then, after a moment, placed his hand on her stomach. Small, warm, steady. "You're doing it again," he whispered. "But this time you'll remember." Elara gasped because she felt it too, not just his hand, but something moving beneath it, a flutter, a turn, a weight, like a heartbeat trying to sync with hers. From the inside, she reached for her phone, typed in search after search. Lactation without pregnancy. Phantom fetal movement. Can grief cause the body to remember birth? All the answers were clinical, cold, sanitized. None said what she knew to be true. She stood before the mirror, lifted her shirt, watched as a drop of milk slid down her chest. She didn't cry, because she wasn't scared anymore, only preparing. And when the boy stepped behind her, reflected in the mirror, he said, "You gave me everything once. Now it's time I gave it back." Episode 11. The home that birthed itself. She woke up to the smell of her mother's perfume, not from the bottle hidden behind the mirror, from the air itself, heavy, lavender, and something else underneath, milk and something burning low. The hallway was longer that morning, wider. Sunlight filtered through windows she didn't remember installing. The wallpaper was yellow, the exact shade she told no one but her unborn child she would use. If the baby was a boy, she walked to the kitchen. It was no longer hers. The tiles were black and white, checkerboard, the same pattern from her grandmother's kitchen, one she hadn't seen since she was 9. On the counter, a bottle warmer, half full, still warm. She hadn't bought one. She never had the chance. She moved to the living room. Books she hadn't owned lined the shelves. Children's books, some in Spanish, some handmade. One was open. She read the dedication on the first page. "Para Mama, you kept me warm before I had skin." The boy sat on the couch, crayon in hand, drawing again. "You like it better now, don't you?" he asked without looking up. The house remembers faster than you do, but it always builds what you forget. She didn't answer, because the couch was different too. Lower, softer, worn on the left side, like someone had nursed a child there every night for months. And the floor held indentations, tiny, like footsteps that hadn't yet happened. She climbed the stairs. There were 14 now, always had been 13. At the top, a door, new, carved from dark wood, handle shaped like a hand turned inward. Inside, a nursery, but not the one from the dream. This one was alive, mobile, spinning on its own, curtains tied with ribbon, a rocking chair still rocking, and on the crib rail, a tag, Elara's room, 10:17 a.m., delivery complete. She stumbled back, her breath caught, her stomach pulled inward. Not pain, pressure, as if the house had timed something. And she was late. The boy appeared behind her, placed a hand on the crib. I told you we'd make it back. You carried me through the silence. Now let the house carry you. The walls pulsed once, a hum deep in the bones, and she realized this wasn't a home anymore. It was a womb, and it had chosen to birth her memory before she chose to reclaim it. Episode 12, Mothered. The crib was no longer empty. Elara stood at the threshold of the nursery, the house still, the boy silent beside her. Inside the crib, not a baby, not quite, but a shape made of breath and memory, swaddled in blankets that smelled like time, its chest rising and falling. With her rhythm, she didn't ask what it was, because her body already knew. The ache in her back, the pulse between her ribs, the milk on her shirt that kept returning no matter how many times she changed. This wasn't pregnancy. It was possession, but gentle, welcomed, chosen, even if forgotten. The boy stood by the rocking chair. He looked older, not taller, just farther from being born. He's almost ready, he said. You just have to look at him. For real this time. Elara stepped forward, each pace slower than the last. The air thickened, not with fear, but with grief. She hadn't given permission to breathe. She reached the crib. The shape inside shifted. It wasn't a baby. It wasn't her. It was a face. She had dreamed once, then buried. The almost child, the maybe son, the version of love she left beneath the soil because the world said, try again. But this one never asked to be replaced, only to be acknowledged. She reached down, touched the blanket, and whispered, I see you. The shape opened its eyes. No color, no whites, just light, like something finally unremembered, was burning through its skin. To leave her clean, the house creaked, the walls exhaled, and Elara, for the first time in years, inhaled, deep, true, free. The boy stepped beside her, no longer smiling. Just whole. That's all we wanted, he said, to be seen as real, even just once. She nodded, and the crib emptied. No sound, no burst of wind, just absence and relief. The house dimmed, returned, a little older, a little quieter, like it had finally gone back to sleep. Elara walked to the kitchen, made tea, sat in the rocker, and outside, the world kept turning. No ghosts, no whispers, just wind. But on the fridge, taped in the corner, a drawing, a family, a boy, a mother, and the words, thank you for not letting me disappear.